Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? This is Shortcuts Live, and today I have a very special guest, Rosemary Orchard. Rosemary, say hello to everybody.
Hello to everybody. Wait, sorry, I'm allowed to say my own things, aren't I here?
Yeah, totally. Please let the stream know who you are and why we're talking about shortcuts today.
Well, hi, folks. I'm a nerd. I love shortcuts, which is probably why we're talking about shortcuts a little bit. But I've also just released a new version of my book, Take Control of Shortcuts, like a whole brand new version. And there's so many shortcuts in it. And Matthew said, let me just drag you on here and ask loads of questions and demo a bunch of shortcuts because there's some really cool stuff that loads of us are doing. And I'm sure some folks here will probably enjoy learning about.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm like thrilled to have you on. And so, you also, what about your podcasts and everything? Because I feel like folks need to know about that.
I mean, I have a few podcasts. I host Automators on Relay FM with David Sparks, which is all automation things, Mac OS, iOS, web. AppleScript even makes an appearance on a fairly frequent basis, I'm surprised
Yeah.
to say. So that's on Relay, and on TWiT, I host iOS Today with Mikah Sargent, where we have an episode or a section of the show every week called Shortcuts Corner, where, people send shortcuts requests and I answer them and demo what they can be doing and sometimes solve things without shortcuts. But a lot of the time I solve it with shortcuts because, it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, nice.
And yeah, other than that, I host Nested Folders, which is a productivity podcast with Scotty Jackson, where we, just attempt to solve all of life's problems in one podcast episode with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy references. So if you're a hootie froop who knows where your towel is, you're welcome. If you have no idea what that means, you'd still be welcome anyway, because you're probably a wonderful person.
Nice. So what kind of stuff do you want to talk about with shortcuts today? Because there's
Well, I
so
mean,
much.
that's a really good question because there's just so many things to talk about with shortcuts. And, if I look in my shortcuts, shall we do the comparison, Matthew? How many shortcuts do
Sure.
each of us have? Because, like, it's not a competition, to be clear, but I feel like I accidentally end up collecting shortcuts on a regular basis. So, depending on which device I look at, on my iPhone mini, which is running iOS 15, it says 1,267
Wow.
shortcuts, which is a lot of shortcuts. If I switch over to the iPad, it says 1,270. So there's three shortcuts that haven't synced somewhere there, and I'm not quite sure where, how, why they are. But
Perfect.
either way, that's how many shortcuts I've got. How many have you got? You're much better at clearing things out that you don't need any more than I am.
Um, am I? Because I didn't think I. My problem is that I build too many extra shortcuts. Here, let me get me back in here. I'm at like 3,000 right now. But
Nice.
I have a whole thing where if I make a new folder, there has to be 8 shortcuts in it so it fits in the widget. And
Oh,
so
right, the
like
big one. Yeah.
I come up with a new idea and then it's like make 8 shortcuts for that. So anytime
Yeah.
like give me 10 ideas and suddenly I can't do math, that's 80 shortcuts. Like it's going to take a long time. It's going to expand really quickly. So I think that's
Yeah.
where I get in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm saved a little bit by the fact that my shortcuts, they're kind of organized, but they're not super organized. Like I have folders, and then I have a great big folder called Organize with 1058 shortcuts in it, which is,
Wow.
whoops. So maybe
Are
I
you
should do a better job of that. But that's something I'm looking forward to with iOS 16, because iOS 16 has brought us new shortcuts, actions for shortcuts,
Yeah.
which is
Oh
just
yeah.
something that's really great. I'm really, I've been playing with the iOS 16 beta. Unfortunately, iOS 16 is not playing with eCount today, or I'd just be using that to show everybody what's up with that. But I love the new shortcuts for like delete shortcut. Like, let me find all of my shortcuts with shortcut in the name. Use a choose from list action to choose the ones that I want to get rid of, and then delete those
Yeah.
shortcuts and just nuke them.
See, I'm so
Um,
scared. I feel like I'm never going to touch that because I'm just worried. I don't know. I'm too precious about mine and I just like
okay,
build them
so
out.
So that's the trick that I use. I do the get link to file action. So I'll just pull up my phone here so I can show folks what I'm
Sure.
talking about. Because what you can do is you can automatically get a link to a shortcut, and this is something that I will do, like I do before deleting things anyway. So we'll start with get shortcuts because we want to get our shortcuts, and you can just choose a folder here, by the way, so you can get shortcuts from a particular folder instead of all
Hmm.
your shortcuts. And I am just going to pick a folder. It's only got 3 things in it, so I'll pick time tracking. And then I'll just do choose from list, because this is hopefully not going to be a stupidly long list when we choose from that. So this is going to let me choose which of my shortcuts. Now, if I enabled select multiple, I could choose more than one at the same time. But I'm just going to do one for the time being. And then there is the get link to file action. And this works the same way as if you were sharing, say, a Pages document or something, in that this will get you a link to the shortcut that you selected.
Does
So
this
I'm going to go ahead and run it.
this still works?
And
Because I didn't think it
yeah,
did. See
or it
there.
did the other day. Okay,
Maybe
that's really
that's where they
strange.
get you now. See, this is
Yeah,
what I've
because
noticed is
I
you have
asked
to
for this
upload it
feature.
first.
Yeah, so I asked for this feature, and I think some of the permissions things might have popped into the way there, because there are, of course, the permissions around shortcuts have shifted quite a bit over the last few years as they've updated things and improved them. So now you have, there we go. I didn't have private sharing enabled.
Hmm.
That's probably that. And I'll just also enable the sharing large amounts of data. Not that I'm planning on sharing 1,270
Yeah,
shortcuts
all at
just
once.
as links with folks. There's probably some data in there that I don't want to share. Let's just try running this again and see. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
I'll
see,
figure that out. But at the very least, you
I
could
think once
save
you've
the
shared
file.
it once, it does work. I think basically the problem was me, because I would create links to all my shortcuts all the time, and so I probably have like 50,000 iCloud links generated, even
Hmm.
though I only use the most recent version.
Yeah.
Um, but once I do share it, then this can be used to grab those. So I haven't
Yes.
really. I do share like almost every one of my shortcuts, so I do need to try this more. But I think this method is like less nice than it used to be
But they
because of
have
people like me.
added back the ability to share shortcuts as files, which I always forget,
That is
but that's
nice.
something that you can do. So I could just update this to just save it as a file somewhere, and then, I can just save that, and then before I
Yeah,
delete it. So
that's a
if
good
there's
point.
anything I want to get back, I can get it back. I
Yeah.
don't know how this works with preserving the sharing links, because one of the things that people don't necessarily know is once you shared a shortcut, and I will just share this one here. Then what I can do, and this is a test AppleScript because I've been playing with AppleScript and getting output from shortcuts on the Mac, because that's something that works a bit differently to on iOS. But if I now open this link here, and when it goes back into shortcuts, it should ask me if I want to disable sharing of that shortcut, which is a feature that is kind of hidden a little bit. So I think it's under the share option. Yeah,
Yeah,
stop sharing. Yeah, because people do occasionally ask, they're a little bit worried. Wait, I shared a shortcut. What if I don't want to share it anymore? Don't delete the shortcut. Like, that's the trick. Like, have a way to get your shortcut back, but then you can, stop sharing. So
totally.
that's something that's very
Especially
good to know.
the way to do that is if you put your address in it or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think I still have a shortcut somewhere that had accidentally had my email in the send draft email action, and so occasionally I just get people who send me a draft email from like their watch, and I'm like, I didn't mean to do that, and I don't know where the link is anymore. So it's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, that is difficult, and that's one of the reasons why I really like all of these apps that have popped up around shortcuts, which are things like Data Jar, because Data Jar allows me to easily store that data, and then I can just get it out. And then if somebody, it's a little annoying in that somebody doesn't have Data Jar, they're going to see like there's an unknown action from an unknown
Yeah,
app here, or like you don't know what this is. So I usually try to remember to put a comment above those first, so that people know, like, hey, this is a data jar action which will get me this detail, because it is very easy to forget to do those input questions, and sometimes
totally.
like you mess it up, and then you end up like accidentally sharing your home address with everybody, which is not cool and not what you wanted to do.
I definitely wrote that piece on my blog about just hiding the information at all in the app, because when we do streams like this, it's just like, oh, there's my home address. I
Yep.
can't do anything about that now. So I really hope. I mean, another thing I asked for like sometime last year was just automatic import questions. If it has
Right.
the address field, make it require it, or like if you use your home, it'll automatically just clear that out and ask
Yeah.
somebody.
Or like
The
before, or when
SSH
you go
ones,
and hit share, like have it show you every single like action where you've typed something in, and ask you, hey,
totally.
did you want to replace this with like a input question? and just kind of walk you through it, because especially for people who are new to sharing shortcuts, it
It's
would be
too
really
easy.
easy to accidentally share something that you don't want to share.
I really
That
don't.
said,
Yeah.
you can stop sharing. So
I really
fingers
don't
crossed.
like that the contacts fields also, like if I put in a contact, that contact card lives in the shortcut and gets added to someone else's device, which is like, that
Yeah.
shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. But equally, you don't have input questions available for the find calendar events action. And it will
Yeah,
just default to like whatever your default calendar is
that's
in
weird.
every single selection, which
Oh,
is kind of
it doesn't
crazy.
let you do them at all? Yeah, because
No,
it,
you can't do any input
I didn't realize that.
like shortcut import questions, which is a real shame. But
I'm like
that's
filing feedback in my brain right now. I'm like, I have like chapter markers saved to be like, yeah, we need this.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Feedback.apple.com or apple.com/feedback. I'm not sure if the subdomain redirects. So
Yeah,
apple.com/feedback is a great place to go and file feedback. If you're on a beta, then of course Feedback Assistant is even easier. But yeah, there's just some really great shortcuts that I've got, and honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes along with Stage Manager as well for shortcut support, because one of the things that I do frequently on my iPad is I'll have it open, say, like a Zoom window and something else in split screen. So I will throw together an example on this iPad quickly,
sure.
because the one that I've got actually has a Zoom link in. And as we were just talking about, we don't want to be accidentally sharing
Oh
all
yeah,
this
okay,
data. So I'll just delete that bit right there. There we go. And now I can share what I'm uh,
cool.
doing here. So this, oh, there we go. There, we have an iPad. Woo! So what I do is I start by just opening a URL, because the URL opens the specific Zoom meeting that I want to go to. And especially if it's like a recurring one, this is really, really easy to do. So it opens the URL, it puts some text on my clipboard, this little emoji that I pop in a chat to let people know, like, hey, yeah, I've made it, I'm here. And then it just waits 5 seconds and then splits Zoom and Discord in this particular case. But it could
Nice.
split, Zoom and Google Docs or whatever it is. And this is so useful, even on an iPad mini, but especially, the iPad Air, 11-inch iPad Pro or 12.9-inch. And it works on the Mac too. And it's just a nice way of just don't getting you straight into the thing that you need with that one other application that you wanted. So that's something I've been using a lot, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4,
Nice.
5, 6 actions. So it's like I could actually probably merge the text and copy to clipboard together. And if you don't
Yeah,
need that, then that's 2 actions saved. But
your
yeah,
URL could be built in the other. I don't know. It's totally unnecessary, but
exactly,
I do it for
exactly. It's
clarity a lot of times, or like, yeah, the whole like how to optimize your shortcut perfectly is different, but for like shortness, or some people want to add the
readability.
variables because it's more clear to them. So I feel like
Yeah,
I should maybe do a thing that's like 3 ways to make the same shortcut, and it's like
yeah.
the simple, the intermediate, and then the it's super advanced is like even simpler, because you just
Yeah.
like you go back the other way and just don't care
Yeah.
about adding that in.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I need to, like, I have to keep in mind with all of the automations that I create and that I have. I had this problem the other day. I have a really great, in this case, Keyboard Maestro macro that runs when I finish recording an episode of Automators. And it should just automatically move the right files into the right folders for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when I record ads, like just pop up and go, hey, what's the name of it? And put the episode in there and everything. And the first part that pops up when I start recording, hey, what's your episode number? So I just type that in. That worked perfectly. The
Mm-hmm.
rest of it, however, was not working so much. And it
Hmm.
took me forever to figure out why. I had 2 Keyboard Maestro macros and the wrong one was activated.
Oh wow.
And it's just like, but the thing is like going through and like trying to figure out which one of these was the right one. It took me a really long time to
Yeah.
do. And that's my bad, because I had 2 things which were really similar. I was trying to figure out like what was like the right way to do this and the wrong way to do this, which is why I had the 2 macros. But I do this with shortcuts as well. I'll have like a partially complete shortcut and it won't be finished. And then I keep, forgetting. So one of the things that I do, and I can probably show this one to folks, is I get all of the episode information for iOS Today at the start of the show, or I do it before the start of the show. So it's all in the
Mm-hmm.
show notes so that we've got that information for as we record. And then, of course, afterwards to put into the show notes for folks. But I also get the app artwork. And at the
Nice.
moment, as you can see, the app artworks one is not finished. And one of the ways that I can
Those
tell is because of
IDs.
the icon. But like the first part is the episode number, and then this is a list of app IDs, because for whatever reason fetching them from Airtable is not working, and I don't quite know why. Having said that, I think I've just seen the solution,
Are they
which is these are
text?
numbers,
Yeah, that's
and
what I
I
was just
think
gonna
it was looking
say.
for them as
You
strings.
were trying to find
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But either way,
Sorry, I'm
it's
laughing because I know the pain, not
yeah,
because I'm
exactly.
making fun
Like,
of you.
so this is a programming thing called rubber duck debugging. You have to explain your problem to somebody else in
Oh my
order to
gosh.
solve your own problem, or just explain it to a rubber duck. And if if you struggle with one rubber duck, then you can borrow somebody else's rubber duck. You can build a council of rubber ducks. But the idea is explaining something to somebody or something else will help you solve the problem.
And
So I think
that
we've
happens
just
to me
done that.
every time. Is it's like the second I'm like, oh, can I like talk to you about this? I'm like, wait, I actually just answered it in my head now that I
Yeah,
prepared the question. But if I
yeah,
hadn't have done
yeah.
that, there's no way I would have figured it out either.
Yeah, the number of messages I've just never sent because I wrote the message and went, and now I see what I need to
See,
do, is so many.
got to make that a shortcut where you like
Yeah.
pretend you're messaging someone, even like select their contact, but then it just doesn't send them the message and just saves. And it's just like you ask yourself the question again, and it's like, oh, okay, I
See,
might
I just
actually build
send the
that.
messages to myself. But you know what I
Yeah,
would do? Actually, I like that. I like that idea a lot. I am going to do that, but I'm going to put the actual message that I would have sent in drafts.
yeah, exactly.
Because this way, if I decide, like, if I come back to it later and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
like, no, I still haven't solved this, like, but I don't want to rewrite the whole thing again. Like, it was a long thing. I can just pop that up
nice.
and,
That's a
and
good
open
idea.
that. So
I need to.
yeah,
I got away from drafts because I've been using shortcuts so much that I just like go straight to the source a lot of times. But
right,
that kind of staging, I have actually been needing to get back into it. So maybe I'll have to have
yeah.
like Chris on because Chris Lawley is all into drafts. I know for sure. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, drafts is great, and I'm just I've just run an action that I didn't intend to run on something, so my packing list is now a bit out of order. But I'll just pop up my screen just to show like some
Sure.
of the things that I'm doing, because actually one of the things that I'm doing right now is uh I'm going to the train station later today, and I'm going to France tomorrow. So I've been packing, and there are some things that I need to do like before I go, and you can see that which ones I've done, which ones I haven't done. But like it's tagged, so I can just find all the things with a tag, so I can like I could tag every one of those messages with like message not sent or something like that, so that I would know. But it means that I can just easily go through and like look at what are the things that I need to do while I'm over there, and what is on my nerd packing list, what is on my regular packing list, and so on and so forth. And it's just so great. And the other thing that I love about drafts is the shortcuts support, because this to me is really where I find apps a great app is great, right? Like, a great app that does exactly what's supposed to is brilliant. But when I can easily and smoothly integrate it with everything else that I'm using without having to go through and make massive changes, because one of the problems that I frequently have is if I am trying to do something like set something up, and this new system requires me to change everything that I'm doing and redo everything from scratch. Like, that's when things are going to go wrong, because I then have to remember a whole new thing. If
Hmm.
I can fix things by doing lots of small incremental changes, like I can just use this app instead of that app. So say, for example, I wanted to switch from OmniFocus to Things. Well, I can swap out my OmniFocus actions in shortcuts for Things actions instead. And because most of the ways that I've done these are through sub shortcuts. So I have smaller shortcuts that will just take something and do this thing, like put it into this particular kind of list. Like if I've got a shopping project in OmniFocus, then it'll take whatever the input is and it'll put it into the shopping project. So that's
Yeah.
configured and that's set, and I can change that in one place, and it changes everywhere. I can just swap that out for a things action. But it's easier to do these things when you don't have to rework your entire system all over again. Sometimes it's useful to do, but we all have a limited number of minutes in an
Yeah.
hour, hours in a
Totally.
day, and days in a year. So it's really nice to be able to just swap things out. But it's got things like this markdown HTML action, and I have to say, as much as like shortcuts can do stuff like this natively, and that is great. Like the fact that I can choose which markdown
Yeah.
parser that I want is brilliant, and I can choose to go to a specific workspace. A workspace being a combination of drafts with a specific tag and then the action groups. So, for example, the action group that is over here on the right hand side, as well as this keyboard action group, those are combined together in a workspace. So I can just open that up. Hey, shortcuts bug. It's jumped away from the menu. This is iOS 15, though. It's probably fixed in 16. But yeah,
Maybe.
it's got all of these things. I'm going to go probably the shortcuts folks are doing a great job. Like, they
Yeah.
seem to be working
It's a
nonstop.
combo of
There's so
Swift
many new
UI too.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah.
chaotic, but they've done so much, which is great.
Precisely. Yeah. But I have to say, like, just being able to say, like, hey, I want to capture this and I just want to throw this in a place where I know that I'm going to find it really quickly and easily later. I can just like chuck it into a new draft. And yeah, I can also have a new note, or I could add a file inside of my shortcuts folder, or any folder now as it is. But I can now also easily get this one back because every draft has a UUID.
Yeah.
So I can reference back to it. And that's something, I found I've been integrating Agenda for work. And the fact that every note has a unique ID in Agenda has made that really, really easy, because I create kind of a daily overview. And I've got that. And I save that ID in DataJar so that
Nice.
it gets created automatically when my work focus mode starts, creates the note, and then it finds it and grabs the ID, saves it, and then when like on my work computer, it's just there. It's been opened for me because my focus mode had started and created the whole thing.
Nice. That's
So
awesome. I feel like you do have, like, I have those contexts really set up, but I haven't done that little bit of scaffolding behind the scenes with, especially I think, does did Jada Jar come to the Mac, or no? It is, but isn't there? I had issues with the actions for a while. Maybe I haven't tried it in a little bit.
so Agenda uses URL schemes to run the actions, but they do run on macOS and iOS.
Yeah, I was saying Data
And
Jar though. Is that
oh, DataJar. No, DataJar works
yeah?
perfectly on
Okay.
both for me.
I
Yeah,
think
I've
maybe it was
certainly
during
not
the
had.
Mac beta or something. I mean, there's so many issues with the betas in general. But
Yeah,
that part of like storing information that you then
yeah,
retrieve on the other device is something that I've always like done a little bit with files, but that doesn't feel nearly
yeah,
as nice. So I might have to get into that, and especially with
yeah.
drafts, I think like setting up the action groups with my problem was because I had those shortcuts, I was struggling to like have the actions in drafts match it too without then just running a shortcut. But like the
Right.
draft action can just be to run those shortcuts,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
it's still
exactly. Yeah,
better there. So
yeah,
okay, that's
exactly.
interesting. Like because I do have the huge problem of like I dump things into random buckets and then it like wasn't really supposed to be there and then it's like moving it all back and forth
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
pain. Or like a good example is both things and craft, the ones that I use, don't have
Hmm.
really great shortcuts actions to pull data out. And
Yeah,
that is killing me at this point because
yeah.
it was like a
That
year and a half ago when I adopted those and I mean I get that probably this year is when that should happen, but I really hope those guys are on top of it because
yeah.
that stuff is like what you were preaching to the crowd
Yes,
about like
yeah,
a great app is like cool, where are the shortcuts, because otherwise this is a standalone island. And
yeah,
when I
yeah,
think when developers really, or it's not like individual developers but just we're kind of living in the future here. And so when that's more widely distributed with everybody understanding that this is how iOS works and Mac, I think it's going to be a lot more powerful because like I was looking back at workflow in iOS, or I don't know about iOS 12, but from 2015. And I was like,
hmm,
man, it was like iOS 7 or 8 around then. And now it's iOS 16. The way workflow has been and shortcuts has been around for half of the OS isn't their entire life. And that really is like what we're doing still isn't nearly the like mainstream at all. And so it'll be very interesting to see this realm over the next couple of years, especially
yeah.
with powerful apps like that. Because that's, I mean, I don't see. I didn't know. This is just my aside about iOS 16. I didn't really understand that the developer tools weren't good enough. Like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, having
So,
having done this a little bit, and I say done this a little bit because I have to say every time I've tried doing this before, it's been very difficult. Okay, I am a web developer. That's my day job. So I write code all day, every day. That,
mhm.
I use NoSQL and SQL, so I've got relational, non-relational databases, and that comes easy to me. Okay, that's kind of like ice skating. Writing shortcut support for an iOS app feels like wading through concrete.
It used to, right? Like, but now it's
Yeah,
easier.
So it depends
Yeah,
on what it is that you're trying to do, but like the new things that they're adding are certainly going to make things a heck of a lot easier for developers. And having heard some very proficient developers utter some extremely interesting phrases and words whilst implementing shortcut support, I
totally.
can believe that this was much needed. Like
Yeah,
if
see, like
if I as a developer can't like usually even if I don't know the programming language, I can look at something and go, this looks like it probably makes sense, or this is the bit that somebody said that there's a problem with. Even if I don't know how to fix it, I can like call that bit out. Like shortcut support, I mean, obviously I need a lot more experience with it, but wow, that felt bad.
yeah, and it's just confusing, and I think it ultimately was like they wanted to implement this level of the new actions this year are going to let developers do all of that find tasks in their own app and pull the data out that I think you maybe could do in limited ways, but you couldn't filter it at all really. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't necessarily understand that that wasn't capable or wasn't possible yet. And so now that that is, now maybe even this year, there's a little bit of like developers won't necessarily know, but going forward, it's like if this is all possible, it is up and a lot better than it used to be. It's like up to the developers to just get on it now rather than the tool not being ready. And so that's just
Yeah.
really exciting because there's some where you're like, why aren't you doing this yet? And they have pretty legitimate reasons. It's not really worth it either because what you can do
Well,
isn't that
yeah.
ultimate version of it. And so now hopefully
Yeah.
they can just go to town.
Yes, I really hope they can. And it's just one of those things where, some app developers have fortunately been had, the time and the ability to go ahead and implement these things. But I'm sure, just as they've done that, there's also an equal number of folks out there going, well, I don't know if anybody's actually going to use this.
Yeah.
There's probably also a fair chunk of people probably on the shortcut subreddit, reddit.com/r/shortcuts for anybody who's not found that yet, who are going, yeah, I'm not going to use an app unless it's got shortcut support. Like to me, that is one of the questions that I consider when I am looking at a new app. Obviously, it depends on what I'm looking at it for. If I'm looking at a game, then I don't really want shortcut
Yeah.
support or need
I mean,
shortcut support.
maybe, but
But
I don't
yeah,
need it.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, it's always nice to have things, even if you don't feel like you need them. But at the same time, it's good to have options for things. And if I'm looking at a productivity app, then I need I need shortcut support in some way. Be that a note taking app, a reference application. Task management obviously comes into that, but also all of the other things. And I was just seeing Michael has asked a question about a
Yeah. It's
favorite quality of life shortcut that I've made. And I've got a couple actually. I've probably got about 100. But one of the ones that I've got is actually related to my work focus mode starting, which I can show folks. I've just
sure.
screenshotted it on my iPhone because I have a personal rule, okay, that I don't create shortcuts in the automations because then I can't edit them and share them. Yeah, guess
That's
which
such a
rule of
pain.
mine I did not follow when I set this one up,
Yeah.
because it started ages ago. But basically, what I do to start with is I check for calendar events, and I look for calendar events which are specifically on the holidays calendar, holidays being like bank holidays. And then I look specifically for ones that do not contain Scotland or Northern Ireland, because Scotland and Northern Ireland have their own holidays here in the UK. And then if there is any information from this, then I turn off the work focus mode, send myself a notification, and then I just stop the shortcut. And that's the end of it,
Hmm.
because you don't want your work focus mode on when you're on, actually on a break, right?
Totally.
So that's the first part. The next part is I have an office that I go to every couple of weeks. We're only in one day every 3 weeks or so. But I don't like annoying other people if I'm there. And so as we scroll down, this will explain itself a bit more. But I check if my Wi-Fi network's name is the Promised LAN, because that means I'm at home. If it is, and if I'm at home specifically, then I want to do this. And then it actually looks in my time blocking calendar. I'm not quite sure why that's showing up as calendar. And then this is struggling to scroll a little bit, but either way, it goes through and it finds it looks in my work calendar and it finds every single calendar event. It takes 3 minutes off at the start of it, and then it adds an alarm. so that I am not late for any meetings. Because
Fair.
you know what? It's really easy to get absorbed in something and then be late for a meeting, and that just
The
sucks.
3 minutes thing is perfect because 5 minutes is like I can get into
2 minutes
something
is
and
too
then
long.
forget.
Yeah, yeah. 5 minutes too long. 3 minutes just long enough. Like it's long enough for me to run to the bathroom and get a glass of water. It is not so long that I will get completely and utterly sidetracked and distracted. But also, if I click like start meeting in like Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever it is, like nobody's going to be that upset with me. Like, okay, she's starting a few minutes early, but it's fine. As a bonus for anything in my work, I do have Slack ping me 1 minute before as well, so that I've definitely got a bonus
Wow.
reminder. But 1 minute before was just like on an alarm. That's not enough.
Yeah. You're like, oh
So
shoot, you're not ready.
yeah, like it's like I have to stop now, whereas 3 minutes is like wind up, you're getting ready to go. And then like you can tell what here is the part where I was like, no, all of these need to be in shortcuts, please. So there's then it runs my work focus mode start. But this means that I don't have my work focus mode enabled when I'm not supposed to be working. Because if I'm not working, then why would I want my work focus mode on?
Yeah.
And it then gives me uh, the prompts that I need to get me through my day, which is wonderful. And the rest of the shortcut, unfortunately, is not showing on this phone, like the run shortcut action, because it does not have the app installed. So I'm just gonna open it up here so that I can tell everyone what it is. Yeah, so it is actually my run shortcut action for the daily agenda note that I was talking about before, but it doesn't run it on that device because it's using a URL scheme, right? So it opens up the app in the foreground. That's how URL schemes work. So you open a URL and it goes to that app and it does whatever it's supposed to do, and then it goes back. And because Agenda uses URL schemes, which is really cool, I actually run this using Pushcut on an iPhone that I've got running as a Pushcut automation server. And that Pushcut automation server, that is my quality of life shortcuts list right there. Because it doesn't matter if I would need to like have the app pop up in the foreground or whatever, I just have that app run it. So it periodically does things like
Oh, I
open
see.
OmniFocus and run my Omni automation scripts. Like I have scripts that will automatically clear up things I've added to my inbox. So I can use the share sheet in Safari on my iPhone or just add things on my Mac from, say, specific stores. And then that gets cleaned up automatically, and like it takes like random stuff out of the title that appears.
Nice.
And then like tags it with the specific store that it's going to be from, and depending on which store it is, it will then add it to a particular kind of shopping list. And those are the kinds of things that I just have running constantly. It feels like in the background, just getting stuff managed for me and out of the way, because I love shortcuts automations. Do not get me wrong, shortcuts automations running on my phone are one of the best things. But it's also really great to just not even have it on this device if I don't need to like interact with it in any way.
Have you looked at the Mac version of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I have.
I guess it just
I
doesn't have the
do. I
iPhone
have.
apps. So
Yeah, I have heard a little something that says that anybody who's looking for pushcut on the Mac should keep their eye out. So I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to get to hear a little bit more of that soon,
maybe
and
there's
hopefully
a
I'll be able to
beta.
talk about that a bit more soon. And I'm not going to get in any trouble for saying this now.
That's fair. I'm sure they're
So
not too upset about Rosemary Orchard teasing their app. So I think
I mean, I hope not. Hopefully, I'm not putting undue pressure on the folks behind it, because I
that's
know
fair.
that they're like just like they're working on some
It's
things.
hard stuff.
There's
So
and so on. But yeah, but there's another thing that I have as a quality of life shortcut, which is it's a single shortcut action. But there's this great app called Signals for HomeKit,
oh yeah.
and if people don't know Signals for HomeKit, like imagine making your lights like flash a particular color in a particular pattern, and then go back to however they were before. And when I say however they were before, if they were off, they go back to off. If they were bright white, they go back to bright white. If they were pink, they go back to pink. And then it flashes doing whatever your pattern is. I have added that to my snooze. So if I hit snooze in the morning, the lights around and by my bed flash
That's
incredibly brightly.
I hadn't thought
But
of
then
that.
yeah, so this is an evil shortcut. Okay, I call it the evil alarm
My
clock.
girlfriend would
But
like it,
yeah, but I do that. And actually, you don't have to have the lights go back to how they were when the flashing stops. So I have it actually set them to just like a very bright white that's going to
Wow.
help me wake
You
up in the
just
morning and get up. Because if I don't get up when my alarm goes off, like it's like the day is not happening. It's not going to go well. And you know what? It is a great quality of life improvement.
yeah.
It is seriously, seriously improved things.
I feel like I would
Um,
hate that, but in the way that you want it, if that's the
Yeah,
goal.
but like you don't have to do that, but like
I'm
equally,
just kidding.
like you can just like so I have an LED strip. I have a Meros LED strip stuck on the underside of my bed, so that if I get out of bed during the night, that's the
Yeah,
light that turns on in my room, so I can see to go to the bathroom without like waking myself up.
that's the thing.
Like
It's like
that's the sort
just
of
not
thing that
doing
you
my
can have
lamp
flash.
is the thing that I
Yeah,
wouldn't want. Or
yeah,
even like
yeah.
one little one over here or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
But like you can use like signals for HomeKit for all sorts of things. So like I have that and now thinking about it, I should integrate that with my 3 minutes before my meeting
Yeah, that's what I
routine.
was gonna say.
So add an emoji to every one of those alarms, and whenever the alarm starts, check that there is that emoji present, and if that emoji is present, flash the light.
The emoji technique is a good. I always forget to do
Be-
that too because it's a unique character and it
yeah.
has significance and like
Yeah.
color in text, which is really nice. I know
Yeah, exactly. So
I
yeah,
put
when my
emoji before all my YouTube playlist titles because then I have like 45 playlists and then I can actually tell what they are from it, like just
yeah.
scanning.
Okay, so you want an emoji tip? Because I love emoji. Emoji are great. Let me just pull this one up. So I use emoji in my packing list. Okay, let me just move my head out of the way here so that folks can actually see what I'm talking about. I use emoji to help me organize my packing list so that like anything that is like not in a particular kind of list, then it just goes there. But then other things are categorized by their type. So all tech things have like a little laptop icon in front of
Yeah.
them. My work things, that's actually a daily carry, have like a little that's a suitcase on it. My work things have a little briefcase, like toiletries. You can see there's soap there. Medications have got a little pill on them. Clothes have got like a little jeans. Makeup's got lipstick. Emoji are so useful for
Well,
organizing things.
totally. Because it's like categorization without having to do headers
Yeah,
and then trying to like parse the text out from that. Because that's always,
exactly,
I mean, like, I think
exactly.
I could do that, but I don't want to. So, like,
Well, the
that's
reason
nice.
why I did this for my packing list is because I use an alphabetical sort on my packing list. And guess what? Emojis that are the same get grouped together,
Uh,
and then everything gets alphabetically
hmm.
sorted within that as well.
That's sweet.
Okay, so antiperspirant comes before
Nice.
body wash,
My
which comes before shampoo.
I did
So,
that, but when I had unique emoji, it was just a totally random order because they didn't have any significance, and I was like, shoot,
yeah,
that ruined. That's the one half of my YouTube playlist strategy. It just totally destroyed the alphabetical ordering.
yeah,
That it
yeah,
happens. Um,
yeah, it does. But
for the
that's my trick for that. I
signals
use
thing,
emoji.
I want like this light to go off like whenever I get like a comment or something like that on in the
Hmm.
live stream. And then it's like I could even like see visually in my own stream that I'm
Yeah,
getting a comment and be like, "Oh yeah, okay." Also,
yeah.
that
Well,
does,
that's
by the way,
yeah. That's what.
Murray says it's he's saying it's nice. I was going to say it's weird to see you because you're on automated, but you got to watch iOS today. You can see Rosemary all the time. She's
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
tons of this
Every
stuff
week.
and just dropping
Yeah.
it. I mean, this is why I love streaming with you because it is like you're I feel like I'm not I'm literally not trying to be critical here, but I feel like I'm doing like too much sometimes, but then I'm like, "Oh yeah, there is this whole other realm of I think like even you have a lot more like some of that personal stuff is really good. I got like
Mhm.
way too into productivity stuff specifically because I think especially sharing shortcuts a lot, I always want to like I assume people want something that helps them get something done rather than just like plays cool music because there's like a clear value, but also the entertainment stuff is just as good too. So I need to think about more of that. But like really getting, I think my problem is I went too wide, and I think you've gone like a little bit deeper in some of these areas that I appreciate because I have like the stuff to give me my packing list, but I can't like optimize it or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of those things, talking about optimization, there's that point, I'm sure some folks have seen like the XKCD of like time spent automating versus time saved. Like sometimes optimizing all of these things is worth it because it actually helps you get stuff done, and it gives you a sense of control over whatever it is that you're doing. But sometimes you are basically just doing it to fiddle with things and play with things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing that as a learning exercise, or you've got time to burn, that's fine. That's not a problem. But it's when you're trying to do all of this stuff and you don't really have the time to do it
Yeah,
that's where the problem is.
exactly.
Um,
See,
but yeah,
I have this
honest,
like weird fake where I'm like, but I can share it, and so then it's worth to do. But like, I definitely get into that realm too much. But I do think, I mean, that's one of the cool things about shortcuts specifically compared to most other automation things is you can share it with other people, and so if you build it, you can give it to your family and thing or friends really easily in a way that you don't have to distribute it on the app store or something like that.
right, right. And I've done things like that. Like, so my parents have shortcuts on their home screen. So they have like a dumb blood pressure monitor, or I can't, maybe it's a blood sugar monitor. I don't remember which one. They certainly have both in the past. And so they have a shortcut on their home screen that when they tap it, just pops up the log health data um, action, and with ask for input in the fields. So then they can just type in the right fields, except the date field, which is automatically set to now, and that logs that information straight into the health app. And
Mm-hmm.
then I
That
did a
stuff is so
bonus.
good.
I stuck an NFC sticker on there. So now they tap the NFC sticker with their phones. I set this up as a personal automation, and it just pops that up.
Nice.
And that's the sort of thing that ends up being really useful. The train station here, you can pay for parking by text message. So you can just send them a message, green bubble, not blue bubble, folks. But you can send them a message with like your license plate number or registration plate over here in the UK, and the date, and some other information, which is like which car park you're parked in, which is very important to know which car park you're parked in,
Yeah.
because otherwise you pay and you get fined, which is not cool. So I have a dictionary set up in the shortcut which says like there's front, left, front, right, and back of station, and that just translates those into
Those
like the
different
actual
spots.
codes for the car park, and builds it together and puts it in a shortcut that is prepared to the right message, so that when it pops up you can just hit send. And there's even a choose from list action in there for choosing the registration plate of the car.
Nice.
And my mom was saying to me like, "Oh, right, but like we changed one of the cars, so this doesn't work anymore. Like, can you get me a new one?" And I was like, "Give me your phone. Like,
I'll
just give me
just
your
do a
phone."
10-second.
Like,
Yeah.
I just edited the list item and updated the registration plate for the other car, and that was it, done.
Yeah. I
So
think that's what's so
there's
unique about like shortcuts automations compared to, or not automations per se, but just shortcuts in general compared to like something like Zapier or if this then that is they don't really build off of each other, or you don't. I think like shortcuts as a programming language and as a skill for you and I really is like, and for anybody else who can learn it, is this thing that you come up with a new problem, now suddenly you have examples for yourself to build off of, and just like you can just suddenly start solving those each time. So I think that's where the time spent on some of those, like maybe your packing list thing is like just a personal thing that like slightly optimizes something that you don't have to do that often. Or I mean, you obviously travel more than me, so I think that's the huge thing for me at least. But
yeah,
then I can take that and turn that method into how I do my checklist for work. And then that has
yeah,
extreme, like, so the methodology, even though the topic isn't necessarily productivity, you can repurpose that in a very productive way all of a sudden. And
yeah.
that's just so cool. Like, I don't know. I mean, we were talking about this on a different show that is coming out somewhat soon. But I'm just still so psyched on shortcuts and just getting past this like kind of buggy part, or like where the actions aren't what we maybe want and not every app has them, to like hopefully going forward that is just a matter of time before we get all that stuff, and then you can really like hook everything together and make these whole complex systems like you and I have, and
Yeah,
even build off of it in it. There's these third party shortcuts apps that go even further too, that's like this whole other realm.
yeah, yeah.
That's so
And I
exciting.
think that's the thing. I'm looking forward to seeing. I can't show folks because this phone is not playing well with Ecamm,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I can wave it in front of the camera. Like this section here at the bottom of the shortcuts menu,
Ooh.
app shortcuts, like this is a thing in iOS 16. This is something that's going to make it easier for developers to take that gamble on whether or not shortcut support is worth it.
I
And
just saw
yeah,
drafts and I'm like getting it
yeah,
right now. I'm
yeah,
updating the
yeah, yeah.
beta.
There's a drafts beta, folks. Getdrafts.com. There's a drafts beta, and it has. Look at all these. Look at them. There's so many
Wow.
examples. Like, oh my god, so many examples. Agile
Um,
Tortoise absolutely nailing that.
have you seen card pointers from Emmanuel? I don't think I've ever said his last name. It's like EMCRO, I think on Twitter. He was been building these too a lot, like him and Alex Hay, and I see all these developers tweeting it with each other because they're all, it's like why learn in isolation. So that's great. But like I think he was generating the same like 45 different shortcuts, and I'm so scared when iOS 16 hits, Rose. I'm like, I'm gonna have 10,000 shortcuts or something like that. If every app generates 45 shortcuts, it's like I hope the sync team is prepared. I
Oh
really
yeah.
don't. I really don't want to have just mission critical failures because I have too many apps. So we'll
Yes.
see. And
But
Siri disambiguation, like goodness, how is
mm,
she gonna figure these out? That's the
well, that's the thing. We're going to set our own names for stuff, right? Which I think is the thing that, one of the things that people hate about Siri is, I'm sorry, I didn't understand
yeah.
that. Here are some web search results, or whatever it is she actually says. And it's so frustrating when you do that. Or I say, hey, set this scene. Playing music on your living room HomePod. No, that's not what I asked you to do. But by being able to set our own terminology for things that to us makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people say write to someone, other people say write someone. Okay, this is a linguistic difference between Americans and British folks, but everybody
Mm.
has their own way of saying things. Okay, there are regional differences, and
Even just like
even
how you
smaller.
prefer to speak to Siri. Like, is Siri
Exactly.
a person, or is it a
Yeah,
thing that you issue command lines to? Because that's
exactly.
a whole different.
Yeah.
I actually do try to be like, show me my thing, because I just felt, I don't know. I think my main question for you is, does Siri work like for your shortcuts? Because most of my shortcuts, when I name them, they don't, and I try to use them with Siri, they don't run, or
Hmm.
it's like maybe they run 2 days later when it processes it, but I think I
I
have
have
too
to
many.
say,
So
I don't end up running all that many shortcuts via
same.
Siri because I've either hooked them into automations or other automation solutions. Pushcut for me has really been key. I've got it
Yeah.
integrated into Home Assistant. Okay, so I have switches that are in HomeKit, so I can say turn this on, turn that on, and that runs a shortcut. But it doesn't run it like on this phone or on a HomePod or whatever. It's specifically running it on an iPhone that I know it doesn't have Apple floating in there because that would drive me crazy. That I know that
Totally.
that device has got everything that it needs to be able to run the shortcut, and then I get a notification that hey, it did the thing.
Yeah.
So I've ended up doing things like that, not specifically because Siri doesn't work, but just because
It's
that's
better.
the solution that is better for me. Because I think one of the problems that people do run into with shortcuts and Siri is your HomePod will pick it up.
Yeah.
And
That's
then your HomePod goes, wait, I can't do that. I don't have OmniFocus
uh,
installed on me. And it's like, but you had
just
this
hand it
whole
off to
little
the device that
discussion
can do
between
it.
all of you devices. Like you had a whole discussion. There was like an entire little argument going on here where you decided that no, the
You have
HomePod
a
is
team
best
of
to handle this
assistants.
request.
Yeah, you have a team of assistants, and the one who's the most useless is like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And then everybody else doesn't respond. And you're like,
Yeah.
ah! Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's
But
hilarious.
I have to say, like, aside from that, like, Siri for me is pretty great. Like, I'll
Hmm.
say, hey, playlist, or do whatever, and it does work, and
Yeah.
it works really well. And I've got all sorts of things set up. Like, I have widgets. So I usually have a second home screen on my phone for widgets. And these I'm loving the whole iOS 16 with the home
Yeah,
screens
it's
and the watch
amazing.
face updating and the lock screen stuff. That's so good. And I
It's
now have
unreal.
much better different home screen support set up. So I have like just a button as one of the shortcuts widget actions, which plays a playlist, and it picks different playlists depending on like day of the week and stuff. Pro tip for folks, by the way, I've got to show folks this because I think some people
You gotta
don't
format the
realize
dates.
the so you can, but the thing that I want to show folks is
Oh, wait, here.
that you
Bring it.
can sort things randomly, right? So I'm just going to
Uh,
use a filter files action. Okay, but if you set sort by, you can shuffle things by random, but it doesn't have to be a file that you input here. Okay, it could be a list of anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be your reminders or whatever. And so if you filter and then you limit this to one, then it just gets one random whatever it is that you've set.
It's
And
a
that is great for all sorts of things. I use that for, pick a random playlist out of the 3 that this is pre-selected, or like I know I'm working, so these are the choices of playlists that I've got. Pick one of those at random, and stuff like that. And
totally.
this, that's the sort of thing that ends up being a big improvement for a lot of things, because one of the things I use shortcuts for is removing decision making from my life. Like, decision
Yes.
making genuinely is actually a very tiring thing. You might not realize it, but having to make every single decision all the time and
The
having
same
to think
ones
about
too
things
that don't
again and
have
again and
huge
again.
significance sometimes,
Exactly.
and then
It's so tiring.
the thing that does have huge significance, you don't have any energy for anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I don't choose what playlist I play when my work meeting finishes. I use a great app called Quiet Meet, which automatically mutes my music when I join a
Hmm.
meeting, which is fabulous. And it has shortcut support, so it runs a shortcut when I finish a meeting.
Wow.
And you
Is
know
it
what
a
that
Mac
does?
app?
It's a Mac app, yep,
Hmm.
and it will automatically play a playlist for me.
Nice.
So
Just right when
and
you
that's what it
finish.
does. Like, when I finish a meeting, it automatically starts playing a playlist.
Nice.
And
I'm gonna have
like,
to
it
do
gives
that.
me a 30-second gap just in case like I'm still like processing things and stuff, so I don't suddenly get, oh my god, there's music.
Yeah.
But 'cause that could happen.
Nice.
But it gives me that little buffer. And it's amazing how many apps and how many app developers are adding shortcut support, and it's just sneaking in all the places.
Yeah, really.
Like Keyboard Maestro has shortcut support. Better Touch Tool is replacing the Stream Deck software, so I can have much better Stream Deck support where I can run all my shortcuts. And I'm just loving all of those things.
Yeah.
It's making my life so much easier because, like, I hit a button before we started today that enabled my podcasting focus mode for an hour and a half. And it did a whole bunch of other things as well, so that I just could get into the mode and get into the zone without thinking about it. And that to me, that is what's great. And
Wow.
the fact that I have that button in a bunch of different places, and depending on which place I run it, like it might just drop a file into Dropbox that gets picked up on my Mac, the Keyboard Maestro handles
Yeah.
for me or something, or it just does everything. But I'm like, it feels like once you have figured out what problems you're running into and how you can solve them, like, you want to add a date to a file automatically or relatively automatically. You want to be able to right click it in Finder and say, hey, add the date to this. Shortcut action.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
Exactly.
Create a shortcut
There's
action. It's a
there,
one action shortcut. So
I
do
feel
it.
like you're inspiring me to do a lot more automation type stuff, because I think I really struggled with partially the shareability for sure. Like, I think a huge limit that I have is that I want to share like every single thing that I'm doing. And so to like set that all up and then explain it back to somebody is really hard a lot of times. And it just
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. So I definitely,
Yeah.
I got to just do some on stream or something like that too, because
Yeah.
I think that's what's so big about pushcut and all those little, is there's all these tiny little decisions that you end up making, and it does take a lot of effort, but then it pays back in dividends as you're
Yeah.
just like not making these decisions, or just not
Yeah.
as tired throughout the day, and all that's so like important.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I have,
It
so
really
I'm constantly choosing which shortcut to run, and I think that's part of the problem,
I,
is
I
that
think that's the key. I don't choose which shortcut to run. The shortcut prompts me to be run when it should.
yeah, see,
Like,
that's awesome.
if it needs interaction, it'll pop up and go, hey, this thing over here, you need to do this. And that's what for me is so great, because I know, like preparing for iOS today, getting all of the links and everything set up for all of the apps, that will require interaction from me.
Hmm.
And so, it depends on when. If I've already done it, it won't actually pop up and notify me and go, hey, you should go do this thing, because I run a shortcut that
Yeah.
will then, if I should do this, because I've got apps in my list that don't have information in. Okay, if there's apps that need data, then it'll send me a pushcut notification and say, hey, run the shortcut.
Hmm.
But if I don't need to do anything, it's not gonna notify me. It's not gonna go,
Yeah.
hey, don't forget to do the thing,
Because
because I've already done the
you've
thing.
got the, yeah, see, I think that's
Yeah.
where maybe it's also that some of the apps that I chose don't have those hooks. um
Yeah.
See, this is where I'm
Airtable.
like, dang
Big
you,
key for me.
things and craft. It's so close, but so, especially because those are like the apps that I prefer. I mean, Airtable too,
Hmm.
though, is like, I know that you like it too, and it's just such a because it itself is so flexible, and their API docs show you your data. That's still what
Yeah,
is so valuable to me because I can actually figure it out from the examples. Because even when I change something, the API docs update with my own information. So that's a
precisely.
whole other realm.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I need to like have a 8 hour stream with you someday where I ship you a case of Red Bull and we just set up all these push cut things because it's I think that's what's so hard is it does take a long time to get to the where you are, especially, and you're like
Yeah.
you're the pros pro, you're the automator. So like
Yeah.
I'm
But
the
equally,
shortcutter.
like, I haven't done any of this in a day. Like, okay, there are some big automations that I did sit down for like 3 or 4 hours and I've put stuff together and it's done. But a lot of this has just been constant small iteration over time. And also, like, very much for me, and this is maybe something that you can try as well, not building this with anybody else in mind. Just do this for me with the purpose of getting the thing done. And then afterwards, I can go back and look at it and go, okay, well, if I was explaining this to somebody else, which bits would be tricky and which bits could I improve? But sometimes it is just a case of just do it in whatever way makes the most sense. Forget about optimization. Like, optimizing
Absolutely.
something that doesn't work is pointless.
Yeah.
You
Especially
know,
yeah.
and yeah, and also for anybody who's there going, oh, like, my shortcuts look pretty long. Like, some of the things I'm sure I could do them in just 2 actions instead of 10. Like, seriously, unless your shortcut is taking a very long time to run and like you get an error message that it couldn't be completed, don't worry about it,
Yeah, none
because
of that.
it's up to the shortcuts team to optimize shortcuts for you, not you to optimize your individual shortcuts
Especially
yourself.
yeah. Like it doesn't it might be more impressive, but it doesn't add any more value to the shortcut itself to be longer or shorter. It's just
No.
really how well it gets the job done. And so that's
And
why
if you don't understand it because you're changing it to be shorter in a way that doesn't make sense to you, then that's definitely a problem. So, like, my suggestion for everybody, just make a shortcut that you understand, that does what you need it to do. And don't worry about making it pretty or perfect or anything. You can come back and edit it later. Or if you're too busy and it just works, yeah,
yeah,
leave it alone.
just
Who
leave it.
cares?
Doesn't I totally have shortcuts where there's a chunk in the middle that just doesn't do anything and then it just drops
Oh,
the
yeah.
data afterwards because I'm
All
like, I
right.
don't want to get rid of that yet.
I'm gonna have to run in a moment, but I do
Totally.
just want to show people a really quick little trick. If you've got a whole block of actions in the middle of your shortcut and you want to remove them, but you don't want to actually get rid of them entirely just yet. Okay, so I'm just gonna I'll just add a send message, open app, play music, a couple of things, and those will just pop in a second. Perfect. So I've got a whole bunch of actions, okay? And this choose from menu and send message, I want to like not use for now. So what I do is I add a number action, okay? And so I'm just gonna I'm getting rid of the number, the menu and the send message after it. Okay, and inside this number, I put a 0, okay? And then I put in a repeat, okay? And it's specifically repeat, not repeat with each, okay? I'm just dropping a repeat. I tap and hold. You have to tap and hold on the number to change this. And I select my magic variable and I choose my number 0. And I just need to drag down the end of this. Okay, and then when I drop that in place, oops, almost got it. I'll just move that messages action into the right place for the demo. Either way, you get the idea. But
bug.
then these actions are not going to run, okay, because they repeat 0 times. And if you do something 0 times, you have done it exactly no times, which is perfect for what you want to do here, because maybe this isn't working just yet. Maybe you need to come back to this and fix this later. Like, feel free to add a notification in there that says, hey, don't forget to fix this bit. But, just repeat, set a number to 0, repeat, tap and hold on the repeat, and change it to your magic variable of 0, and those actions will not run, which is really ideal if you are trying to fix something in the middle, but the start of it works and the end of it works. You don't need to duplicate a shortcut. You don't need to do an if and set variables or anything. Just use a number and a repeat.
Yeah, that's good because especially sometimes I feel like especially with my API shortcuts, I'm always trying to do something in the middle of the process and then I end up deleting the end and then I have to go back and rebuild it at the end and I'm like, why did I do that? So nice. I'll use that too. Well, awesome. Thank you for coming on. Sorry for anybody if people were tuning in at the 11 a.m. because we had to reschedule a little bit.
Yeah,
But
sorry about that. I have to run and get a train. Apparently,
happens.
trains in this country can't cope with the heat, and they're on strike tomorrow. So I got a
Wow.
double whammy of having to move everything to be able to leave tonight. So
So
thanks for you,
climate
Matthew, for
change
moving this.
Rose's stream again.
It's okay. We'll do another one like next month where I've got like the whole day off work so that I can just like stream until 4 a.m. or whatever it is my time.
I mean, I can get up early too. I'm up at 6. Let's just go for it because I'm like, I'll inject the push cut straight into my veins, basically.
Yes.
Just go for
And
it.
I've just had a tweet from Antonio, by the way. He said another way to get a single random item is the get item from list action, which is
Ooh.
another great way to do that. You can have a random one, and you can just get the first random one from the list. Yeah, if it doesn't work for anything, then try the filter files action. But there's plenty of ways to get random stuff, and that's a
Totally.
good tip, Antonio.
I
Thanks.
love that. The serendipity generator is, I feel like that's what I use shortcuts for a lot too.
Especially, it's a playlist. Like, what's the worst that happens? You hit the button, like the widget button, to run it again because you don't like the playlist.
Yeah, exactly.
No big deal.
So for everybody can catch the replay also and leave comments, and I can like forward them onto Rose, and I'll also add chapters for all the little sections we talked about because I'm definitely going to go back and copy your stuff. I feel like that's always, these are half for me sometimes. So
I mean, as long as somebody learns something from this or enjoys this or has an idea and feels like maybe they're doing something, I'm good. So if you've enjoyed this, thanks. If you haven't enjoyed this, then, well, hopefully you'll enjoy some of Matthew's other stuff. He's got loads of great things out there. So keep an eye out.
Where should people follow you if they don't know already?
Well, if you go to rosemaryorchard.com, that's got links to books, podcasts, the works, including social media, where you can find me on Twitter and micro.blog at Rosemary Orchard.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Rosemary, thank you for coming on. It's been
No
wonderful.
worries.
And we will stream again soon.
All right.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.